infinite villager breeder for 1.14. I'll put a list of everything you need on screen now, so pause the video if you need to, and then we'll crack on and build this thing. So once you've found a nice place to build your villager breeder, and make sure it's at least 160 blocks away from any other villager, okay, or any other village, naturally spawned village or anything like that, and at least 48 blocks away from any other point of interest. That's a bed or a workstation, a villager workstation. Okay, once you've found a place, you need to first of all press F3 and G, and you need to find where your chunk borders are, because we don't want to be building this where the villagers are going to be standing next to a chunk border. If we have the villagers standing on there, there's a chance, and it won't happen often, but it could happen. There's a chance that when the chunk unloads, the villagers fall through. They'll fall through the block that's in this chunk that's just been unloaded. There's a little, it must be something to do with like a delay. So the villagers are all packed in here. That chunk could unload and they'll fall through. And that means that they'll fall out of the pod that they're in. So don't build it on a chunk border. Always try and build it so it's within the chunk. Okay, so once you've found out where you want to build it, you want to pop out the block that's going to be that's going to be banging the center of your villager breeder, and you want to stick down an illuminated block. Let's get rid of those borders. That's just to give it a bit of light. It's not necessary because there's going to be water in there anyway, but it just looks nice. Then you want to grab your block of choice, and you are going to be able to see this, and then you need to build a 5x5 or put a 5x5 floor around your illuminated block. If you want to leave it grass, then you can leave it grass. It's up to you. And that is the footprint for your villager breeder. It's tiny. It's tiny, 5x5. You'll have to take into account that there is a little bit of redstone and some rails to go out of the back left or the back right, depending on you know, where, I mean, if you wanted to build it that way around, back left, back right, but determine where the front is going to be, and there's going to be some redstone in one of the corners, but we'll worry about that later. So now you've got that, you need to come to the front left of your breeder and build a column that's 5 high. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you want to do the same on the left, on the right, like that. And then you want to go to the back, and you need to build a wall like this. Okay, so you've got 3 blocks at the back, and then a block there and a block just there. And then you want to build this wall up 5 high. So now you've got something that looks a little bit like this. Now you want to take out a temporary block, and you want to put it on top of the glowstone or the sea lantern or the jack-o'-lantern, your illuminated block that's down the bottom there. Jump on top of it, and then you need to stick down an iron bar or a pane of glass or an end rod. You can use an end rod if you want to. It's got a slightly bigger hitbox, but it should still be okay. And if you use an end rod there, you probably won't need the illuminated block at the bottom, but I'm using an iron bar, so do that. And then you want to stick 2 more temporary blocks on top of the iron bar, and then around this top temporary block you need to put some glass blocks like that. And then you want to do the same just above it, so you've got 2 layers of glass, okay, like that. And then you can pop out the 2 temporary blocks that are in the middle. Now we're going to put a few trapdoors in. Now I'm going to assume, for the purposes of this tutorial, that you only have 2 villagers to go in the breeder. We're going to put 6 in here all together. You can put up to 20 in there if you want to, but there is really no need for that at all. One, you're going to have to feed them a colossal amount of food, and also you just don't need it, because now with 1.14 you don't have to dispose of any undesirable villagers. You actually can make them to order. so to speak. If you want a couple of farmers to go off to a farm, you just make a couple of babies and give them the farmer profession. If you want, I don't know, half a dozen librarians to go into a trading hall, you breed half a dozen babies and give them the librarian profession. You don't need to get rid of nitwits or butchers or clerics, you know, the undesirable villagers like we used to do in 1.13. So there really is no point of packing the breeding pod here full of villagers. You'll get loads of villagers, yes, but you don't need loads of villagers anymore. So we're going to put 6 in there. Now, if you've only got 2 villagers, and most of you will, what you need to do is stick a trap door on top of the iron bar, or the pane of glass, just there like that. What that's going to do is when the 2 villagers are in there, we're going to get them to breed, and any baby villagers won't fall down. They'll stay on top of the trap door there, and they'll grow up, and then we can breed with those. Otherwise, it means if that wasn't there, they'd fall out. We'd have to wait for them to grow up, and then we'd have to get them back up to the top and push them in again. It's just easier to keep them there in the first place. If you've got 6 villagers to start with, then great. You don't need that trap door. Just push them all in there, and job's a good one. Okay, but if you've only got the 2, you need that trap door. Then we'll break it later. Then you want to put another trap door on the bottom of the bottom glass block. There, okay, just there. So when you open it, it opens upwards. If you put it on the top of that bottom glass block, when you open it, it'll open down, and that's too high. You want it on the bottom of the bottom glass block, and then open it, because we're going to need to push villagers in there. So now you should have something that looks like that. Now you can go ahead and get rid of the bottom temporary block, that one there, and then you fill the rest of the sides in with glass blocks. It can be any, I mean, it doesn't have to be a glass block if you don't want it to be. You can actually fill this with solid blocks if you want to, but then you just wouldn't be able to see in, would you? You wouldn't know what was going on in there. So now you've got something that looks like that. Now it's time to decide where you want the villagers to come out of the farm. It can be back left or back right, doesn't make a difference. Okay, I'm gonna have them coming out of the back left, so I need to put my water at the front right. If you wanted them coming out of the back right, you have to put the water at the front left. So just get your silk pick out, pop that out, stick the water in there, put the glass back in again, and there you go. So now all the babies are going to fall down into the water, and eventually they're going to get pushed off into the corner where they're going to get picked up by a minecart. So now you've got that. Now you need to decide where you want to stand to feed them. You're going to have to continually feed the villagers. You can't just feed them once and forget about it. That's you've not been able to do that for ages and ages. So you are going to need a way of getting up to feed the villagers. So you can do that on either side, or you can do it on the front. All you need to do is stick down 3 ladders, and then you can climb up to feed the villagers. We're going to have them climbing up the right hand side. So you want to get in line with the center block, and you want to put down 3 ladders, and then you want to jump up, and you want to pop out the top 2 blocks to give yourself somewhere to stand. And then you want to pop out the block directly in front of you. Okay, so you've got your 3 ladders, you've got those 2 blocks popped out, and then you've got the block next to the villagers popped out as well. So now you can stand here and just throw food straight into them. Now you should have something looking like that. Now comes the fun bit. Now you've got to get your villagers in there. Now you can get these in using boats or minecarts, or you can push them up steps, or you can push them up into a water elevator and have them fall in. Whichever way you want to do it, you just got to get your 2 villagers into there. I'm going to spawn them in with a spawn egg because I can, but make sure before you start pushing them in, make sure this top trap door is open and the bottom trap door is closed. Now if you're only putting 2 villagers in there, again, you don't need that bottom trap door. If you want 6 villagers in there and you have all 6 villagers, you don't need that bottom trapdoor. You only need that bottom trapdoor when you have 2 villagers, but you want to breed more to breed with. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. So we're going to spawn in 2 villagers. Now you can see they don't have a profession, which is fine. The villagers you put in there probably will have a profession. It doesn't matter whether they have or whether they haven't. It doesn't affect what kind of babies they have or how often they breed or anything like that. So once you've got your 2 villagers in there, close the door, close the trap door, and if you jump in there, you can separate them a little bit, make it easier for them to throw food to each other. Now we have to stand in. We have to throw food in. Now each villager will use 12 carrots or 12 potatoes or 3 pieces of bread each to make 1 villager. Okay, now if you've got a greedy villager in there, and it's likely, more than likely, that one of these guys is going to be a bit greedy, you will throw the food in and the greedy one will pick it up quicker than the other one can. And then the greedy one will throw the food but pick it up again quicker than the other guy can. So if you see them throwing food about, they're not actually throwing food to each other. What's happening is the greedy villager is throwing it and then yoinking it back before the other guy can pick it up. If that happens and you see food being thrown about, they're not going to breed because one of the villagers won't be able to pick up the food. So if you see them throwing food about, you'll need to throw in at least 8 stacks of food to fill up the greedy villager's inventory before the other guy is going to start picking food up. So bear that in mind. So we're going to stand here, we're going to throw in a load of carrots. So now I've thrown in about 10 stacks of carrots, and you can see already they've got the little love hearts, which in the past meant that they were going to have a little baby. But now in 1.14 that's not the case. They'll make little love hearts until they realise that all the criteria for making a little baby isn't met, and then they'll get all angry and you'll see the little angry particles. What they need is a bed, because at the moment their village, so to speak, it hasn't got room for another little baby. So we need some beds in there. Unlike in 1.13 and 1.12 before that, villagers now are no longer rely on doors, and they no longer rely on a different number of blocks on one side of a door than the other, inside and outside. So these breeders can actually be built underground or underwater. If you've got a nice Atlantis kind of base in the middle of the sea and you want a breeder inside it, you can build one there now without having to put columns of glass everywhere, and you can build this underground without having to dig holes everywhere. It relies solely on the number of beds. So we want 6 villagers in that pod. We have 2 villagers in there, so we need those guys to have 4 babies. And for them to have 4 babies, we need to stick down 4 beds. And it's as simple as that. As soon as I stick down 4 beds, those guys will have a baby, and then 3 or 4 minutes after that, they'll have another baby. 3 or 4 minutes after that, they'll have another baby, and 3 or 4 minutes after that, they'll have a 4th baby. And each one of those babies will claim one of the beds. Okay? And then they'll stop having babies. And then we can destroy the beds and wait for the babies in there to grow up. All right? So we'll stick down the 4 beds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Straight away, or within seconds, they should be having a little baby. And there he is, and you can see the love hearts have stopped because they've had a little baby. They're no longer in the mood. You can't quite see him yet. Where is he? There he is, little fella. There he is in the corner. So we're going to have to sit here now for, I don't know, about 20 minutes and wait for those guys to have another 3 little babies. So I've been waiting a little over 20 minutes. It was about 18 minutes actually, and I've just sat back down again. We've got one of the babies has already grown up. The other 3 are sat in the bottom waiting to grow up. So that was quite quick. So now I'm just going to sit here for another 10 minutes or so and let the little babies in there grow up to be adults. So while we're waiting for those to grow up, we can put a roof on this thing. So grab yourself another block of choice. Again, this is going to be This can be any solid block you like, or it can be glass. It doesn't have to be. It can be stairs. It can be any block now, because you don't need to worry about having a different number of blocks on one side of a door to another, as I mentioned earlier. So the breeder can be completely covered by a solid roof, and you haven't got to worry about it. So we're going to stick some solid blocks there. We're going to put some stairs around the outside of it. Make this look like a pitched roof. You can make it flat. You can do what you like with it. And we're going to fill the inside with some more blocks. And on top of there, we're just going to put a jack-o'-lantern to give it a bit of light in there. Don't have to if you don't want to, but I am. Don't want to leave these guys in the dark now, do we? And if we cover that up like that, and then we can put some more stairs around the outside. Like that, and then just fill the top in. A solid block and a slab on the top. That's going to prevent spawn, so nothing now is going to spawn up on top of there. Doesn't matter what the light level is. So now you should have something that looks like that. So now all of our little babies are grown up. We've only got adults in there now. Can't see any little faces looking at us. So what we can do now is break these 4 beds. And then grab yourself a chest, go around to the side, put yourself down a chest, and put those 3 beds in that chest. We're gonna use those later. Okay, so just store them in there. And then what you need to do is get in, carefully break a couple of blocks. You need to get in and you need to break this trap door. Now be careful not to start whacking your villagers. They just don't like it. Okay, so just break that trap door. And they'll fall down slightly, and now they're standing on top of the pane of glass or the iron bar, whatever it is you've put in there. Now anytime they have babies in future, the little babies are going to fall out into the water, and then we can put the glass back in again. So now you've got something that looks like that. Now we can go about putting in the system that gets the babies or villagers out of the breeder when they're born. So you want to come to the back left. We're using the back left, and as I mentioned, you can do this back right if you want to. Just have to do everything the opposite way around, or mirrored over. So get to the back left, pop out this block there and the one below it. You need to stick a redstone torch at the bottom there, like that, and then a block over the top of it. That's going to be you're going to put a powered rail on there. That's the rail that's going to be used to suck the villagers out of the back. Now what you need to do is decide whether or not you want only adult villagers to be taken away from the breeder. You may just want the adults to go to a trading hall that doesn't accept little babies, or for whatever reason. So if you don't mind babies being taken away, you need to put the observer block there. Okay, on the second block up. Now every time a little baby comes out into the minecart, that observer will detect the little baby. It will do when we put some string over the front of it, and that will activate the system and let the baby go. If you want the baby to be held there, bouncing backwards and forwards until he grows up into an adult villager, you need to put the observer block 1 block further up. You need to put it on this block there. Okay, and then you want to put the string over the face of it. But we're going to be I'm just going to assume for the tutorial that you don't mind little babies going here, there and everywhere. So we'll put the observer block there. Now you have to have the detection part, the smiley face part of it there, the redstone part there. Okay, if you have it the other way around, this is not going to work. So you want to put your observer block there, and then on the face of that you want to put down a piece of string. Okay, like that. Now you want to grab your block of choice again. You want to put 2 blocks there and there, and then coming off the back of that block you want to put down a sticky piston like that. And now you can put 2 blobs of dust there and there, and that's going to, every time the string is activated now, it's going to fire a pulse through that dust, which is going to put a 1-tick pulse through this sticky piston, which means in Java that it's going to push the block out and leave it, and then suck the block back in again. Now we're just going to replace this block with a nice block like that, and then you want to replace this block here, yeah, 3rd block away from the breeder, that one, you want to replace that with a dispenser. Now it has to be a dispenser, otherwise this won't work. So make sure it's a dispenser, not a dropper. You want to do that, and then pop out the block next to it. We're going to stick that there. We want to put a button on that block there. It can be a stone one, it can be a wooden one, makes no difference, but you just need a button there, like that. So now every time you press the button, obviously the dispenser will fire. And now you can extend those powered rails out to there. Now here, you need to dig down one level. Okay, because the rails are going to drop down there, and there is going to be a block on the face of that sticky piston that stops the minecart until there's a villager in it. So we'll drop that out. Let's just replace this with a nice block, because we can. You don't have to, but I am. Like that, and then just run the powered rails off down that way, and that they're going to go to wherever you want the villagers to be stored. As I mentioned, if you're putting the babies, if you're taking babies out of there, these want to be stored at least 160 blocks away, at least as far away as you can. 200 blocks is ideal. So now you've done that, we need to put a temporary block there, and then another block there over the top of that rail. Okay, so you've got your sticky piston, then a gap, and then a block. And now every time something appears, a little baby, a baby or an adult comes out into the minecart, that's going to happen. And then when he leaves the string, it's going to put it back again. Okay. Now you need to come around the back, come around to here, pop out that block, and then stick a hopper facing into the side of the dispenser. You've got to make sure, don't put it there so it's facing down. You need to be looking at the side of the dispenser, crouch, and then put the hopper down like that. Okay, now on top of that, you need to put down a chest, or a double chest, and that's where your minecarts are going to be stored. So we can fill those up now with minecarts. And now if you want to tidy this up a little bit, you need to grab yourself some stairs. You need to go around the back and then put a stair there. Obviously, if you put solid blocks over the top of the chest, it's not going to work. So you need to put stairs on there. And then you can't put a solid block there either. If you put a solid block there, the villager's going to take damage. The adult villagers, the baby villagers should be okay, but the adult villagers will take damage going through there. So what you need to do is grab yourself a stair and face that way, and put a stair down there like that. Okay. And then you just want to put another stair there. Okay, in the corner that way. And then that stair then turns into like a corner stair, and it gives the appearance of a solid block. But the villager won't take any damage when he goes through it. So that's just a way of making it look a little bit more tidy. And then we can just tidy this up if we want to. Like that. So now what I'm going to do is I'll activate the button to let out a minecart, and then I'll go around the front and stick in a villager so we can see this working, so you can see what it does. So we'll throw a villager in there. Are you going to go around the back now? Put you in right the wrong place, haven't I? Oh no, you are. You are going. So he gets picked up and he gets taken away. If he was a baby and the observer was there and the string was one above, then all you'd need to do is do that, and then the observer block would be one above, and the baby would be too high to hit the string, and he'd bounce backwards and forwards till he grew up. And as soon as he grew up, he'd be in the string and he would then be taken away. Okay, so it's a baby sorter as well. But we don't want that, do we? So I'll put that back like that. Now, if you want this to run automatically and you don't want a button, then all you need to do is replace this rail here with a detector rail. So we'll get rid of that and we'll put a detector rail there like that. We then just have to put a powered rail, power these rails. Like that. Let's just get rid of you. Sorry, mate. Apologies. Don't need you. Okay, and now what's going to happen is the minecart is going to bounce. There's nothing in there, is there? The minecart is going to bounce backwards and forwards there until it gets a villager in it. It's then going to activate the piston. That minecart is going to disappear that way. But as it goes over the top of the detector rail, it's going to activate another minecart. Okay, so let's see if we can do this. I'm going to have to, unfortunately, dig a big hole so these guys don't come back again. If I throw in a couple of villagers now, that happens. Okay, and they'll continually go. That will continually work as long as you have minecarts in the system. Now these guys really have to be taken at least 160 blocks away to get out of the range of the village. Okay, so I mean 200 blocks is ideal, but you really want to be taking them quite a long way away. And you also need to be putting some kind of stop end in this rail to stop minecarts coming back down again. You don't want minecarts going off down there with villagers in them, banging off another villager and a minecart or something and coming back again, because if the minecart comes back over the top of the detector rail there, it'll go up into the system, it'll dispense more minecarts, there'll be absolute chaos in there. So what you need to do is, if we pop out those 2 blocks there and put a block and then 2 blocks in front of it, make a little hill that goes up a couple of blocks like that and then falls back down again. If we put a stop end there just to show you, then when the villager comes down and hits the string, that block is going to move. That minecart's going to go, but then it won't come back again. Okay, it'll come back to here and then it'll stop, and that stops it from coming back and going over the detector rail, because as I say, if that happens, chaos. So now you should have something that looks like that. Okay, so that's pretty much it. That's the villager breeder for 1.14, pretty much. So I'll show you how it works again. You want to get to the back, pull out your 3 beds, and then stick your 3 beds down. And straight away, almost straight away, these guys are going to start having babies. There you go. Within a couple of minutes, we've had the 3 little babies. Now, I don't want to overcomplicate this, but if you leave these beds there, you can leave the beds there if you want to, and they won't have any more babies as long as those babies, or as long as there are villagers there. But as I mentioned, if you transport those 200 blocks away, these beds become vacant, and those guys will start breeding again. But if you don't want to do that, if you want to store your baby villagers in there, you can do. All you need to do is break the beds and then put them back down again. And now as soon as those guys get back in the mood, they'll start having little babies. And once they've had another 3, you can break the beds, put them back down again, and they'll have another 3. Now obviously that does mean that you have to keep coming back here to break the beds, but you're going to have to come back here anyway to keep feeding them. So it's no biggie really. Alrighty, so break the beds, put them back down again. You'll have another 3 villagers when they get back in the mood. In 3 or 4 minutes, they'll be back in the mood again. So I've left it running now for less than 20 minutes because the babies still haven't grown up. I've replaced the beds 4 times and we've got 12 baby villagers in there. Which is fantastic in less than 20 minutes. It's really, really efficient. Now, as I mentioned, you can put more than 6 villagers in the pod if you want to, but any more, if you put 20 in there, you'll just have to feed them a colossal amount of food. It's really not worth it. Put any more than 10 in there, and it's really not worth it. But if you put 10 in there, then you'll want 5 beds. If you put 8 in there, you'll need 4 beds. If you put 6 in there, you'll need 3 beds, that kind of thing. You can do the maths, but it's really, really efficient. So if you have enjoyed the episode, please don't forget to leave it a like. And if you really loved it, don't forget to subscribe for future videos. And if you have any questions about village breeding in 1.14, leave them in the comments below and I will try my best to answer them. This is Frilioth with my babies, and I'm out of here.